Yo, whoever is watching. Let's first make the timer disappear. All right. So, hopefully we will finish the box today. There's only 4 more locks in the box. And let's just take out what's in the box right now. This is all done. This is the Basi that we did the other day. Hey team. I might maybe wanna disassemble that just to confirm it's the same pinning. It's very, very rare, very old. So we got the classic BKS PZ88. In my opinion, the most difficult green lock you could pick. In my opinion, also blue, but we haven't made that change yet. Then we have a random size econ, 5-pin. Looks like sort of a standard profile. I don't know what it's called exactly. Probably not rated. Likely in the green area. Then we have a very nice FAB. I'm not sure if these are actually rated. The profile is super annoying. Like this is extremely thin. So this is definitely gonna be a hassle. And finally, an Abus C83. Not sure if old or new. I took the liberty to already take this out and cut it in half because last time we saw that the other side was actually completely milled out. There wasn't even a core recognizable anymore. So instead of spilling all that dirt on the table here. So those are the remaining locks. Maybe we should start with the easy stuff. The Abus. And yeah. So I've been playing with camera just a bit, just to see if I can get a better angle. I'm not sure if that actually worked out. Let me see. Problem is here I have to watch out what I do with my head. So I can probably also just zoom this in a bit further. Just fix this camera. Oh, that looks pretty nice, I think. All right, let's give it a try. Now we have tiny faults. Resetting some spools here. And open. Oh, that's an easy one. It's probably old pinning, so next will be the BKS. I'm still thinking about like maybe the camera would be better if it was coming a bit from the side, because like this it's just like my hand is completely in front of it. So this is the BKS. Let's also change this here. Is it, I guess it's better like this, but what do you think should be even more to the side? I'm always struggling because if you go too much from the side, you can't see any kind of like false sets anymore. It's just not possible to really see the difference. I guess I just need a camera that sits on my forehead. So this likely has the typical BKS pinning. First two pins are spools. Then we have two of these BKS barrels. And then we have one regular pin that's all the way in the back. Okay, I think we can try that after this log, just to see if that is better. I can just readjust everything here. Bit of experimentation. I guess what many also do for filming is they use really small cameras, like a mobile phone, for example. And that I could theoretically even put like in front of me. And that doesn't work with the setup I have here because both cameras here are like huge. I could not put them possibly in front of me. Yeah, I think so too. Would be better. We should give that a try. That was not good. Oh, okay. Yeah, we can give that a try. Now we're in a, this is a spool fault set most likely. I already set the first spool accidentally. This is the second spool now. I'm also thinking about making the clicks more audible. Like you can hear very well what's going on here, but the problem is the regular speech settings for the microphone just filter such clicks out because they appear like noise. So maybe I'm gonna use a second audio source, maybe attach that to the log, like using a body microphone or something like that, and then we could also hear what's going on. Not sure if that's gonna be useful, but should give you more to hear as well. And it's open. So the usual, after setting the spool here, some stuff dropped, and then in the very end, usually the barrels catch on again, so you need to walk through all the holes again. Oh yeah, contact mic. Yeah, that's what I meant. Contact mic. I usually go by feel, but the thing is, sometimes you hear clicks where you know, combined with the feel that you have, is like, yeah, you just said something, or something just moved or sprung back. You can also hear you can also hear when you're losing other pins sometimes, but it's not super reliable. Like you pick primarily by feel, not by hearing. All right, I'm gonna put the next lock in, and then we're gonna readjust the camera angle. We're gonna go for this econ lock. Oh, let me quickly adjust the camera. You think like this will be better? By the way, not sure if you've seen, but we've pushed for some belt upgrades today. So for example, this ABUS C83 old pinning will now be green. Good that I already lasered orange on 10 of them. Now I have to erase that again and replace it with green instead. Well, let's just give this a try. So now we have false set. Usually Econ uses tooth spools, like on position 2 and 4, sometimes also on position 2, 3, 4. But we can't really rely on that anyway. So that was one spool. And that was the other spool. Very nice pickable lock. So also not too dirty. I mean, the key looks pretty smashed, but the lock still works just fine. Also, it's one of the newer Icon clutches that are a bit better to disassemble. Like, I really hate the old ones where you have to push the pin out and everything. Guess we can now easily spend hours on picking this one because this already looks ass. So just gonna see how that goes. I'm not even sure what this is. Like, is it a FAP 100? I tried to find it earlier. The thing is, the FAP 100 in belts uses a different profile. It could still be a FAP 100. It's just that with this profile, it's by no means orange. Oh, I wasn't even aware we changed. Not in this push at least. I don't think we changed ABUS padlocks. Oh, you mean the EC? EC75. Yeah. I believe 40 and 50 are identical. I'm not sure. I have to double check. I have them all here. I just figured that there is difference. Yeah, there's difference in the amount of pins. At some point, the core basically becomes the same as an EC750, like the regular profile cylinder core, while in the smaller ones you have smaller cores with smaller key. And the thing is, even though I believe they have one pin less, that doesn't actually make it easier because the profile is just really, really small. Which one do you have? The larger one or the smaller one? Hold on a second. I'll get the key for the smaller one. So this one here, I can just put it here as well. This one is the small one, the 30mm one, and it has this key. Maybe I should put an EC750 key next to it so you can see the size difference. So this is like the key size for the 750 or 550, and this is the smaller one. And there's no other sizes. There's only these two sizes. I can't remember if the larger size starts at 40, 50, or 60. I don't have one actually. But for all others, it's the smaller size here. And you can see here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins. Well, this one has 6. And it's considerably smaller also in width, not just in length. So that makes it difficult. Okay, yeah, if the 40 is as small as the 30, then it's gonna be the same. Like it's also gonna be green. In my opinion, these are, for beginners, they are not really easy to pick. The problem being that you have to you're forced to turn clockwise here, even though you would actually prefer to pick like this with a flag like this, which actually would want you to pick it to turn counterclockwise, which you can't. So especially if there are spools in there, this one is only spools, for example. If you tension clockwise and you're picking in this clockwise motion, setting the spools is so difficult. So what I do in competitions, because these always appear in competitions, is I tension them and then I use a really, really tiny flag, the tiniest flag I have, or like you can also use a very small half diamond, and you just pick from this side instead. That's gonna be way easier. But this is that's why I thought like this is not orange. Like this is really difficult to pick. All right, let's try the FAB one. Yeah, it's a very important lesson, in particular for dimple locks. I mean, it applies to all locks, but it becomes so much more obvious, I think, with dimple locks, that the combination of tensioning direction and picking direction really matters. That they need to be opposite. Otherwise, you're gonna end up in a bad spot as soon as you have to fix any kind of security pin fault set. You're just gonna block yourself. And it even happens in the regular locks, where you have like a paracentric keyway. That last turn, usually you want it to be against your tensioning direction just to help you with spools. But it becomes so much more obvious as soon as you start picking dimples, in my opinion. Yeah, yeah, it happens in all versions. It's simply the padlock, the aspect of it being a padlock that makes it harder for you, not giving you that choice of picking direction. Hey JB, doing fine, and you? Feeling good with the new belt? Actually, for now, this doesn't feel so bad at all. Where did you get the headache from? From filming? Well, I guess you can safely say that you conquered some of that anxiety by making the video, submitting the belt request, which is good. Oh, you by rules you actually wouldn't have to do that all in one video, right? So the reassembly could have been a separate video if you wanted to, and the reassembly is also only for green. No, so the reassembly part is a specific requirement for green only. And it just to show that you can reassemble any log. And that doesn't even have to be the same log that you picked. So there's the picking part and then gutting that to show that it looks inside the way it's supposed to look. And then for green specifically, the goal is to show that you can reassemble a log. That could be another log as well. It can be another take, a different video. But of course, many people just do it all in one take because it's, of course, less work. This one actually doesn't feel too bad. There's a lot of feedback going on. It's just that it doesn't want to really go into a false set. I wonder if something is maybe overlifted here. I don't really remember. I reviewed many videos. Did you use a battery as a follower? You didn't use one at all. Oh, how did you reassemble? I don't remember. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't use followers very often, but for the type of lock that you disassembled there, that's definitely the easiest to do. And for such cylinders like this one, like the half cut one, that would also be the easiest way. The thing is, I often have to disassemble double Euro cylinders, and there using a follower is not really doable unless you use segmented followers, and that's more of a pain compared to using like a clamp. So I'm using primarily a clamp like this, which goes in like this. Works for most locks. There's a few locks where it doesn't really fit. And of course, like I'm only talking about standard locks. As soon as you go into like multi-pin, multi-row, you need followers or segmented followers. Otherwise, I mean, this won't work. I'm jumping a lot of back and forth here between pins, and they all seem to bind a little. Oh, now I'm in a huge false set. I'm not even sure if that is can be a spool false set, but it could be. Let's just double check that it's not a coupling. That looks like a lot of false set. I'm just gonna take this out so you can see. That's probably very thin spool or some thin head, something like that. Yeah, we were discussing that. We were discussing that before. Like before, I had an angle that came straight from top. The problem is then my finger is always in front of the core. So it's not really possible to get a straight look on the lock and not having my finger or hand obstructed at the same time. It's kind of sucks. There's only bad options. I'm gonna use one of the longer hooks now just to check if this is something in the bottom somewhere. Can't get in any further. So I can't find the spool. So what we're gonna do now is little trick. Just gonna rotate back. This is very weird. I'm not sure if this is actually a spool. Like you can see that it's going back and forth and there's nothing popping up. Usually a spool would normally pop up. Yeah, of course it's not a spool. It was the coupling. That's one indicator. Like normally if you tilt back slightly, the spool will slip back up. And that is also a good beginner tip. Like if you are having trouble finding a particular spool, let it slip up a bit, then tension again, then go with your pick over the pins, and the spool that you just got back up will slip right under your pick. Like it will just, if you try to push on it, will slip on its own back into its really large false set. And that should give you a good indicator of like where the spool is actually. Well, that was surprising. I thought this would take much longer to pick. So maybe we should disassemble the Basi lock that we picked the other day. That one I wanted to disassemble anyway. It's the one with this weird ass profile. Just gonna put the macro camera on again here. This one here. I picked that the other day. It was the only one that I did not open on stream. And picked it afterwards. And we didn't know at that time what it actually was. It is a Basi, an old Basi multi coming from the company, the Basi branch that makes locks in Germany that are like the better ones. So, and this is supposedly really, really old. Probably one of the first produced by them. So it would be nice to see what's inside. The only pinning I could find was on Coxa, and that just had 2 spools on it. I just want to confirm that's the case here as well. So we can see if we can get this open. Has kind of a goofy ring. Is probably a steel clip ring, but it's also bending a bit. Okay. Super dirty. And this also has a emergency coupling mechanism in it. Just gonna put this here for a minute. So the key pins are so far all regulars. That is, I'm not sure how this is actually called in English. If I would literally translate it, I would say it's a holding clamp. Actually, let me look up at Multipick how they call it in English, because I mean they have a international shop, so they have everything translated already. So they call it a mounting clamp. Oh, okay. So the German name is Montageklammer. And they have a 5-pin version and a 6-pin version. Just get the 6-pin version, because it's just literally, if you had to make it shorter, make it shorter, right? But it's better to have more reach. You rarely have the situation that it's too long, and if it was too long, you could just lift it, like push it out a bit, so that's fine. What I did with mine is, so mine comes from somewhere else. It's not the exact same model that Multipick has. What I had to do with mine is I thinned out that middle part very, very much, so it fits better into like really tight profiles, because the standard is very broad, and it doesn't have to be. Of course, the more material you remove, the less force it will have to hold down the pins. And if with a bit of practice, you can even use this to reassemble. Like I'm often reassembling locks with that, just pushing the clamp against the pin, pushing the pin in, and then moving on, just like you would do with a follower. So here's the pinning. Nothing special, actually, just 2 spools. And we can probably now use the newest feature on this table, which is the microscope. I just figured, like, why not have a microscope? So here we have the spool, super standard spool. I'd actually turn this right. Regular key pins, regular standard drivers, except for the two spools. There's one, there's the other one. And now to confirm what I saw on Coxa, let's just look into the pin here. Not sure if this will be visible. It's too bright. Just gonna lift this up and see if we can get it. Yeah, there. So there you can see it. there is drill protection in the pins. So some of the pins have drill protection. Maybe you can see it also on this camera here, like on the normal macro camera. So they put some steel drill protection into the pins themselves to make them harder to drill. I guess that's a feature. I've only ever saw this feature from Dome. Like the old Dome S, they also have these drill protection pins where the steel is inlaid into the regular driver pin, and even key pins. So to reassemble with the clamp, it's a bit finicky. It's a little easier with the follower actually. You just take the first pin, you push it in, you push the clamp against it to hold it, push it down. As soon as you have like 2 pins in, the clamp will just hold on its own. And 2, and now you can let go if you want. Yeah. Last pin can be a bit finicky, especially without moving my head in front of the camera. I can't see a thing here. Sorry about that. Now we got it. Now to rekey this. And now we just hope that the whole coupling thing still works, because that's always my biggest fear. Yeah, you don't have to reassemble for blue. Like for starting blue onwards, it's really just about like pick and gut, just to show what's inside. Or you can use the other way around. You can use reassemble and pick. Then you don't have to gut. Some people do that. I believe for some locks, it can be a little easier. So now we've only streamed for an hour and I ran out of locks. That's really kind of sad. I ran out of unknown locks. We could do a few more of these icon locks. I got more icon locks that I haven't picked yet, but they're all very similar. Let me just, maybe let's do 2 or 3 more of those, just to give them a rating. Or is there anything you would like to see instead? Like anything that isn't like high build, like anything that is blue or green or orange, maybe. The locks on the bottom left. You mean this one? Those are Euro cylinders. So that's how all of the locks look in Europe for doors, or most of it. I wouldn't say all of it, but most of it. It's a standardized format that fits into most European doors. There's a few other formats that are also used in Europe, like the round cylinder and the Scandinavian oval, for example. But these are the most. This is by far the most common format, and it's usually so. There's single cylinders like. Do I have one here? So there's the single. This is the single version. Basically, this only has one side. This is used for any situation where you only have one side. Basically, this is the typical garage block, or for in key switches. Sometimes some padlocks also use these type of cylinders, but padlocks are quite special. So that's called a half cylinder. Then there's the standard double cylinder that's used for many doors, so you can lock from the inside and from the outside. And these in particular have the issue that if you have a key on one side, by default, you cannot insert a key from the other side, because usually it's just a tiny metal piece that's being pushed into this coupling part from one side back to the other side, and so on and so forth. So it's not possible if I insert a key here and turn, I cannot fully insert the key from the other side. But there are so-called, sometimes it's called emergency coupling, sometimes it's called uh, operating from both sides. So there's different terms for that, for couplings where you can have keys from both sides, and then when there's a key stuck on one side, you insert it into the other. You just turn the core without turning this part until it matches here, and then the mechanism will just pick up and both keys will turn. Like the inner part will turn with the outer part. So that's why this whole design is a bit more complicated. And then there's, of course, in Germany we call this Knauf. This like a door knob. So this is for the inside, so you can just close the door from the inside without having to have a key stuck from the inside all the time. Those are the basic Euro cylinders that you'd see here. Yeah. And there's different forms of this as well. I believe this is generally not common in the US, because in the US, I believe you always have something like this on the inside, right? I'm not super familiar with the US style. I believe they use the rim style. Okay, why not? Do you have a so do you need a key from the inside to lock the door, or can you just use something like this to turn and then it will lock? I see, that makes sense. Most of the time that's also what you want. I mean, of course it's a little more dangerous in terms of burglary, because if you have any kind of weak parts in the door like glass or so, you can just smash that and turn from the inside. That is the biggest fear why many people don't get these kind of uh door knobs to turn from the inside, but then they end up leaving their keys stuck there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Lots of spools here. So I just had an idea. Let's take the belt explorer. Is there any particular Euro lock that you are interested in seeing? I do have my list of locks that I have a collection. I'm not sure if I have all of them there or if I would know immediately where they are. But at least for some, I would know. So I feel like we can at least do one more lock. A dimple. Let's find some dimples. Let me just grab a few. I'll be right there. All right. So we have this is an EC 750. Then we have this is a Basi BM. You actually need multiple. So of course the most important is flags. I'll show you in a bit, and then there's some special picks. Some people might say you don't need them, but they make things certainly easier. So this is a Basi BM. We just rated this green today. And then when we have more time, we will also pick this beauty. That is the EC 880 that we also just rated blue today. It looks very similar to Abus Bravus, but it doesn't feel this way. And I feel like it has a lot worse tolerances. I don't know why, but it has this nice thing that it relocks at 180 degrees with 4 pins. So you need to actually, in total, pick like 10 pins, which is interesting. So let's start with the Basi one. Oh, and tool-wise, I got quite a few. Let me see where the flags are. Flags are here. So I would say that the 3 most important ones that I have is this is not even mine. This one is left flag and right flag. And then tiny flag. It's a little smaller, shorter in diameter, and fits into places where the other 2 don't want to go. So those are the most important ones. And then I made a few more myself. I'm not using all of these regularly. This is a very flat one. Means it has very it's very thin. It fits over a lot of pins where there's very little space. I made this particularly for XP2, XP2S. This one I originally made for Dome, where you have lots of space to work. This one I'm no longer using, but that was also for Dome. And then there's this one, which is really, really tiny, that I use primarily for, not for dimples, but for sliders. But you can use it for very small dimples, like for this this particular small padlock here. That's what I use for that. And one more that I have is this slightly bent flag. We're gonna use that for the EC 750 because it has such a convoluted profile that it's nice to have something that turns over that profile rip. You don't strictly need it. It only gets relevant when you have to go all the way down, and you could potentially also reach it with a regular flag if you just angle it differently. But I felt like this makes it easier. So as I explained earlier, the most important thing here is actually that we're tensioning in the right direction. Let me see what I'm going to use here for tensioning. We are gonna pick like this. So we're basically turning clockwise, which means we want to tension counterclockwise. For dimples, it's even more important. So I'm gonna have to do that without moving my head too much into the picture here. I think I'm gonna have to adjust the angle here. So. Oh, and I forgot to update the title. How could I? There we got one. Another one. I set a security pin of some sort and lost something in the process. So it's actually on the packaging. You can see that it uses dome pins, but we're going to disassemble it in a bit just to see what's actually inside now. There's actually some sort of cooperation between Dome and Basi. I don't know what exactly the cooperation looks like, but they share some technology, which is evident from like them using Dome pins here and them selling clones of the Dome X 10 kg. And now we have a real false set. Let me readjust this. So this is a spool, or what could also be, it could also be a core spool, a torpedo, because these logs have torpedoes by now. So if I wasn't careful, maybe I would have hit a torpedo, but I don't think I did. But let's see. Actually, it could be a torpedo. Yeah, I think this is a torpedo. That means we have to start all over. Very nice. Should be more careful. I'm not sure, but it almost feels like they have some sort of zero lift pin in there as well. Okay, now we have a false set. And this one is definitely a regular spool. It's the second pin here. Now we are back in a false set. Second spool somewhere. Second spool, or could be like a, if it's a dome pin, it could also be the head of the dome pin. It's not necessarily, no. It really depends on the pins. Like the thing is with this one, it has more elaborate security pins because it's dome pins. Um, there are definitely dimple locks where I would say they are easier than many standard pin tumbler locks with regular keys. It really also because you can more easily access pins. It's of course a different feeling, like to use this tool, but one advantage is like that many standard profiles they actually give you really good access to the pins. You don't have to reach over pins. You can just go from the side and just work on them one by one. So I wouldn't necessarily say this is much more involved. The thing is, this thing here is actually made pretty well for the money you pay. So it's not very accurate, not super accurate at least, but it's giving me a hard time due to the pins that are in there, which for the very cheap price you really get a lot. Now we have to find the second spool here, if there is any. Oh, it was just a head. So we can look at the pins now if you want, just so you see why this took longer. Also, Belt Explorer needs pictures of this lock. So remind me to actually take a picture before reassembling. I hate these clips. Finally, we got it. That went flying straight into my room. So in goes the clamp. 1 second. All right. Let's see what's inside. And immediately pins fall out. Of course, because I'm an idiot. Glad that I have the key. I can check where they belong. One pin went missing here. There it is. Oh, and this is actually a torpedo. So we're gonna put this here. Make some space here. Passive pins. Third one. Oh, this is the third one. Another torpedo. Sixth one. First one. And here you can see the key pins. And it's so on position 2 and on position 4 we have a so-called torpedo. It basically looks like this. Just enable this here. Basically looks like this. So if you overlift, this will sort of behave like a spool, but it will already be pretty far down. So usually that's how you notice. And it also, when you let go a bit, it behaves differently. Like it's really hard to describe, but it feels a little weird. It doesn't feel like a natural spool. And you have another one, a short one here. At the first time we tried to pick this, we engaged a larger one. Like I could feel that it's on position 4, that that there's something overlifted there that behaves like a spool. All right, let's now see for the drivers. So the first driver is or last driver is a regular one. Another regular one. This is a dome pin. Another regular pin. Another dome pin. And another regular pin. And I'm going to show you the dome pin. So this is what the dome pin actually looks like. And the nice thing here in the microscope is you can even see the slopes on the head. Like it's like you have a normal thick spool, but then it has this head like the Abus spools, but the head is not just straight. The head has this angle, and that's where it catches again. And when you tension really hard, it's very, very difficult to set this. Like with the Abus spools that have this tiny head, even if you tension like crazy, you could still push really hard on the pin and it will be set. This one requires like a tiny amount of counter rotation to actually be set, and that's why it's difficult to set by accident, or like it's difficult to set under a lot of force. So you have to let go just a tiny bit just to check. And that was the last faults that we saw while picking. When it was already in the larger faults, and I just tipped that pin and it opened, that was stuck on the head. And by the way, since these pins are not exclusive to Dimple, like this is a dome thing, and there are dome locks of all sort that have this. Even regular pin tumbler locks of dome can have this, and there are some dome locks on the belt system that have the same. Let me check. I believe the RS8, for example, has them guaranteed. Yeah. One second. So this one, for example, that's of course a high belt lock. Ah, the Sigma should also have. Oh no, the Sigma has different ones here. This one. That's a standard 5-pin lock, older lock, Dome RS5. I've also seen some Dome RN, but they tend to put regular spools in there now. Maybe that's because these are more pricey, I would assume. Like making these pins is probably really expensive. So now we're gonna take a nice picture. Let's also take one spring for good measure. Okay, let's take some nice pictures here. All right. And now we're gonna reassemble this because I don't like having disassembled logs lying around. I learned my lesson. Usually what happens is they never get reassembled. So we're not gonna do that. But yes, it makes sense to at some point get started with the dimples, because if you want to progress higher in the belt system, it gets very difficult to actually avoid dimples. Many of the high belt locks are dimples, or they have some kind of dimples in them. Last pin, last driver. All right. So now we just need to make sure that we're putting everything in terms of core back together the way it's supposed to be, including the passive pins. There are two passive pins here that come from this side. They are irrelevant for picking, they're just for key control. It's the two dimples here. When turning, it's just check that there are holes present. So you could just make a key that has everything drilled. Not really a part of the combination. I guess this is the right orientation. Yeah. And I dropped a pin. Where did I drop? Got it. So we got it back together. We just need to find the ring later that went flying. So one more that I could show. This is the ABUS 750. All right. Take care. Have a great day. I'm also gonna make this the last one now because it's getting late. This is essentially also a 6-pin, but at least the older ones, the 750s, they don't have any kind of fancy key spools or anything. They usually have a mixture of spools. Some have serrated pins as well. And what's also common for them to include is spools that have like recessed heads where there's like thinner heads. They do this primarily not against picking but against bumping. Because one trouble with all of these dimple locks here that we're dealing with right now is that they are much easier to bump than regular pin tumbler locks because they have much less height to travel. So they're adding all sorts of countermeasures in terms of pins to avoid that. Or to update the title. You cannot pick this if the title's wrong. So this one, for example, was very deep. I could hear the click here. It also moved visibly. So this was probably one of these heads. And for this one, this pick made it much easier to reach all the way down. Like with the shorter flag, I was not able to really find that. Now we're in a large false set. That is very likely a spool. So now it's reset, but we dropped something. Also, one thing that I really like about this pick is that, I'm not sure if you can see this on camera, maybe I can also show it later in the microscope, is I made a little notch in the middle. That means if you go onto a pin with this, you're not going to slide backwards or forwards while setting a spool, which at least for this log is super helpful, because otherwise you would slide down. And we're back in a large fault set, so there's another spool most likely. Yeah, it's in the back. And set, and now we have to fix some other pin again. Now we lost the first spool. So after setting the spool here, using a lot of tension, just to avoid the other spool to come back while I'm trying to find at least one pin that I can set, just to be in the safe zone again. Where is it? There it is. So now that's open as well. And I think that's gonna be the last log for today. Next time, we will look into this one. So we just rated this today, rated this blue. And this is what it looks like. Let me just also put that on the macro camera. Just as a little teaser for next time, this is what it looks like. But the interesting part is actually the key. Let me just put this in focus here. So the key, basically, this is the main row, these 6 pins. And then you have actually, and you cannot see this very well only by looking at the key, there's actually 4 pins here that overlap with this row. There is another element here, so these 2 dimples here are not actually used. They are in this cylinder empty. But if you turn this 180 degrees, then basically these four pins will interact with the drivers 3 to 6. And in particular, one of them, this one here, is just a regular pin. That means you will have 2 regular pins sitting on top of each other, and it's actually very difficult to get over or on top of that regular pin, because it doesn't have this typical key pin shape, so that makes it a little obnoxious to get over it. But overall, it's not that difficult. So we're gonna pick that next time. I hope you had fun. I hope you have a good evening, and see you soon.